Hi, I'm Matt Carey, Senior Documentary Editor at Deadline.com, and welcome to the Deadline Studio at the Sundance Film Festival. We're going to talk now about the film Troublemaker documentary, which is premiering in the premiere section. Really delighted to be joined now by the producer of the film, Maharaj, and by animator Thabang Lehobye. Troublemaker. The troublemaker here is the late extraordinary Nelson Mandela, of course, who fought apartheid for his whole life and was imprisoned for 27 years, released, and became really the first president of a free South Africa. You knew him very well. You were both members of the ANC, the African National Congress. From your point of view, why is this film important now to be thinking about Mandela and his life and work?
We're living in a very troubled world today. It's a world where people want to assert the idea that might is right, where people want to inculcate fear rather than friendship, where people want to impose the idea that they control the narrative of the world. This is a troubled world all over. And Mandela was a person who challenged the settled ways of thinking. So the world we live in needs new ways of thinking. And therefore, the Mandela story needs to be looked at, to interrogate it, to see what you can take away from it that is relevant to today. And I think that Troublemaker, today we would say a disruptor. A disruptor can be constructive and can be destructive, but we need disruptors who are constructive.
Well, that's so well put. Thank you. We are hearing Nelson Mandela in his own words, in his own voice, because much of it was recorded for his memoir that he wrote of Long Walk to Freedom. So we have the audio, and this is where you come in, because you're animating so much of what he says, and it's really incredible animation. Can you talk to us about how you decided on the visual approach to the animation?
It really took us to take a step back and look at how far we've come as a democracy in the country. A little over 30 years in. And for every young person, it takes a moment of reflection. And one of the things that we really reflected on visually was South African protest art. And our approach into our visual language and how we wanted to approach Mandela's voice in visual form spoke directly to their protest art, which was used back then as a form of protest and to deliver a message to the public in print form. In that way, it felt like the best way befitting the Mandela's voice in a way that is intricately connected to the struggle itself back then.
There's certain visual elements that I would call, almost made me think of woodcuts in a way, very evocative.
Absolutely. Woodcut was one of the main techniques that was used as part of protest image making. It is quick. You're able to do reproductions of prints over and over again. People used to use found materials, and wood cuttings were the ones that were like really close and feasible, that they could quickly incorporate into part of their visuals that spoke in a very strong and very distinctive way that when you stood back, you could actually see it as a collective. And I was really fascinated in how they actually felt like a unit in one sense, but also quite, speaking of different struggles.
Yeah, as I mentioned, you were in the African National Congress. So was Mandela. In 1962, he was arrested essentially for his activities as part of the ANC and opposing the apartheid regime in South Africa. Are there things that you learned in the course of making the film that you didn't realize about your friend? For those who know him well, maybe they know all the elements of the story. It was certainly revelatory to me. I didn't realize he'd lost his father, for instance, when he was very young.
He lost his father when he was young. He lost his mother while he was in prison. And he lost his son while he was in prison. But Mandela was a person who had learned how to control his feelings. He hid his private self. And so what we have on the tapes And what Thabang has had to grapple is to bring out those private elements. And for example, when he learnt of the death of his mother, and as he came down the ramp after he'd been informed, we could see from the way he walked that there was a change. But we went into his cell. He had wrapped himself in a blanket, and we went to convey our sympathies. And all he said to you was, thank you. Thabang has had to bring out that private moment. So you are seeing Mandela in his vulnerabilities as well as his strengths. And I think all of us have to look through that private self of the person to understand him and where he comes from. The pain that he felt when his son was killed in a car accident was such that he could not afford to allow the prison authorities to see his vulnerability. But he could not afford to allow us, his comrades, to see himself in a weak moment. So he had to hold himself together as an example to all of us who were going through pain, not to succumb to the pain that the regime was inflicting on us. So Thabang has had a huge challenge, how to bring out those moments so that you can see not just the public figure of Mandela, but the private part of the man.
And Thabang, an important part of the film is also the sound design. The film was directed by Antoine Fuqua, who we know for Training Day and many other scripted narrative films. I know that he made at least one documentary about MLK and Obama, because he did that in the context of CNN, and I was there at the time. So he has done some work in documentary, but your visuals are also then paired with very subtle sound design, so it puts us in the place as well. What did you think of the use of sound accompanying your animation?
Sound has such a unique way of bringing you into the space. Visuals hint to you about time in space. One of the key things that we looked into is the sights of and sounds of then, and we were working with image first and incorporating sound after. And I'm sure from the team's point of view, audio point of view, it was finding ways that we could pair up some of the archival footage with the new visuals that we found. I think what I found quite striking a lot was that the visuals could open up so much imagination, while sound can really lead you into that moment in time, right? The background sounds of people chanting and marching, while you have an image of Madiba walking across the field, for instance. The visual opens up a world of possibilities for you to have an interpretation of a situation that in live footage or live action you couldn't have achieved. So I thought that was a really good, interesting way of pairing sound and visuals themselves.
It has been a number of years, as we're discussing, since Mandela's release. I was at CNN the morning that he walked out of the prison. No one knew what he would look like. There he was, this towering figure leaving Victor prison. Are we in danger, is there a danger of forgetting this extraordinary man, what he did not just for his own country, but for the world? That we need to make sure that we do not lose track of how extraordinary he was and sacrifices and changes that he made for South Africa and the world.
I'm hoping that the sensitivities and sensibilities of Antoine have put before us something special. Because we like to think of heroes as people we like to touch and we like to have a photograph with. Whereas what we need to see in Mandela is the possibility that exists in each of us to become Mandela. So what we have to do is we have to look at this thing, and Antoine has put the story in such a way that you have the baseline to look at this man to see what can you take away. What can you identify and what do you see as a possibility in changing the way you conduct yourself? So I think that Antoine has done a fascinating job of looking at 70 hours of tape and extracting from it a narrative that gives us the chance to try not just to hold Mandela, but to try and understand what is Mandela trying to convey to us. So I really have found it an immense privilege to have worked with Antoine because he made me understand myself better.
Wow, that's very profound.
And Thabang has come in to also enhance those sensitivities. I'm 91, but I'm still learning. And Antoine and Thabang and Jake have helped me to learn more about myself.
Well, anyone who sees the film is going to learn a lot. And as you say, hopefully will question themselves, interrogate themselves, and will be enriched and ask themselves important questions. So thank you. The film is Troublemaker, which is premiering in the premiere section at Sundance. And we have been joined by the producer, Maharaj, and by the animator, Thabang Lehobye. Thank you so much both for being with us, and congratulations on your premiere here at Sundance.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.